And
too.
I like the way it smells. Some people hate it. I like it.
Yeah.
And then some fellas use like red line oil. They'll use like a red line. There's just a specific 2-stroke oil that they'll use. I actually use turbine jet oil. I use Aeroshell 500, or I'll use BP2389 or 2380. And I mix 1 quart of oil to 5 gallons of gas. So it works out to be 5% is the mix. And I filter my fuel multiple times. It's filtered when it goes in the can. It's filtered when it comes out. It's filtered when it goes into the fuel pump to fill up the airplane. It's filtered again with this little filter. And there's also a filter in the universal air trap.
Okay, so what happens if one of your filters get blocked?
That thing right there stops working, and then
falls out of the sky.
The next maneuver is landing usually. So,
what's the
again,
glide rate of your
practice.
F-16 without engines? Good question.
Well, it's funny because I had a flame out on my Elan last weekend, and it was no big deal. I mean, it just depends, you know. Sometimes you're too low and too fast to land, and sometimes you're too high and too slow to get around. I don't know. It always seems like you get the worst combination. But I had a flame out last weekend, and I was able to manage it fairly well. My son had a flame out on my 339, which is 55 pound airplane, and it was only the second time I ever flew it. He was 12 at the time.
God.
And he said, "Dad, can I fly your airplane?" I said, "Sure." You got to fuel it. So he fueled it, but he misfueled it. He didn't understand how the fueling system works. So he filled the main hopper, but he didn't fill the 2 saddle tanks. So about 6 minutes into the flight, he's flying along. He's actually making a knife edge pass with the thing at about 100 feet.
Oh.
And the engine started to sputter and made just a couple little pops. I said, "That engine doesn't sound right." And I no sooner said that than flame out.
Yeah,
no more flying.
By the time you say those words, it's all over, yeah.
Yeah, and he managed to get the airplane down. He didn't damage it at all. Well, a little scuff on the wing, but really no big deal. But yeah, you don't want those filters to get plugged because it'll ruin your day, most likely. So one other thing, too, just for you guys to know, I showed you this valve here. Where is it? Come here, dude. I showed you this valve here, this little electronic shutoff valve. It's real important. If there's anybody building an airplane now that's listening or watching or has an airplane and doesn't do this, they really should put a manual shutoff valve, a physical valve that you shut off with your hands. The reason for that is that if this valve here has a little bit of dirt or crap in the seat where it doesn't seat completely closed, it won't affect how the engine runs because the valve is either opened or closed. But what it will do is that when you're pumping fuel into your system to refuel it, you're going to pressurize the whole system. If this little valve is not 100% seated, you'll trickle a little bit of fuel into your engine. And the next time you go to start it, you'll have a wet start. And those of us who've flown
not good
jet airplanes know what that's all about. That results in a fire, and things go downhill from there.
Lots of sadness.
So always put in a here, and I'm going to spin around. We'll see if we can get to it. Just bear with me, guys. You can see, I think, I'm trying to look at the monitor in my airplane. Can you see?
There you go.
Right there.
Yeah, the tap.
Right there. Yeah, that's a manual shutoff valve on my engine or on my Elan, and I always shut that off. You let the engine shut itself off the electronic valve because that's part of its shutdown sequence. But as soon as it's shut down and I've got everything stowed, I'll reach up and I will close that valve right there, so I don't have any additional.
When it physically stops, or prior to that?
As soon as you slew the trim down to cut off, the engine shuts down immediately. And then what I'll do is I'll typically take my finger, move it down, shut the trim down, and then my very next action is to reach in there and shut that valve.
Okay.
So that's that valve. Now, Dave, I got to tell you, we've gone an hour.
Yep.
I have this airplane in here to show guys, but maybe we save that for the next time. What do you guys think? I can give you a scan of it here while you're...
Well, it's up to you. If you've got the time and the guys to have a look at that. Umbrella, Eric, folks, anyone watching? Have you got the time, Dave, or do you want to wrap this up and we'll do it time?
I can talk about it and just give a review of things, and then I'll talk more about them next week.
Next time.
Now, Dave, I can't see the screen, so I'm holding the camera. You tell me.
Okay.
Got a good video shot here?
Yeah, hold it still for a sec. Up a little. Tilt up. There. Electronics.
Oh, hold on. Let me go around. Let me go around so I can see.
Okay.
Maybe I can see it this way. Hold on, guys. We're spinning in here. I'm going to get a USB extender cable for my camera. Yeah, I can see that now. I can see. Okay. So right there, that's all the electronics of the airplane. That's the receiver and the power distribution panel. And then you can see the plugs right here. These are my connectors for power.
Yeah. What's
They
right
go
on the top there? That's the receiver I see in the middle, is it, or the controller?
This here?
Wait,
hold it still. Moving around fast.
Yeah,
this
yeah,
guy,
yeah,
right?
yeah. That. What's that?
That's a glitch counter. It's made by Spectrum. It actually counts the number of times you have fades or holds on your 2.4 gigahertz system.
Wow, I haven't heard about that.
Because we have remote antennas. We have these guys like right here. Let's see if we can get that. So there's a remote antenna sitting on top of my fuel tank.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I have another one all the way up in the nose, all the way up front, up here. And what this system does is it monitors. Excuse me? 2
remotes?
Yes, on this airplane I have 2.
Mm-hmm.
On my Bandit I have 3.
Oh.
So this airplane has 3 receivers. It has the one in the nose, the one on top of the tank, and then the one that's in the actual main receiver body. And what this system does is this looks for fades and holds on each one of the receivers. Because if you've got poor reception, it's going to tell you, and then that will indicate that you need to change where they're located in the airplane or got something else going on.
Okay, so it logs it, or how does it record that? How do you get that information?
It's there's a white. I don't know if you can see it. I'm having a hard time seeing
the white spot. Yeah.
There's a white button.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just a button, and there's a little LCD screen right there above my finger. I don't know if you can see that.
Okay. Yeah.
And you can just read it, and it's a flash type memory. So if you shut the system off, you lose your data. So typically you read it before you shut down the radio.
Okay.
So then underneath that guy is the receiver, and that's sitting on top of this power distribution panel. This is an EQ10 by SmartFly. And we could talk about that too. These are God's gift to model airplane people.
What was that? An EQ10?
Yeah, by SmartFly. It's a power distribution panel.
Mm-hmm.
So
we can talk about that. Yeah.
I don't know so what it does is
we're seat of the pants here. If you want to go into detail, because I know in particular Trowler's loving it, but it depends how much time you have.
Well, you know what? I think I'll save it for another time because I'm having a hard time seeing the camera feed and what I'm pointing at. So I'm all over the place.
Sure, no problem.
So I'm gonna spin this around here a little bit. That's a little crazy. And then in here you can see, I think you can see the retract valves. There's retract servo and brake servo.
Yep.
You see those two guys right there?
Yep.
Too? And then over to the side, there's the brake valve and the retract valve right in front of it.
Is that hydraulic?
And then, no, they're both pneumatic.
Okay, yeah.
Air. And then behind it, there's the front of the fuel tank. Right there, it's the fuel bung where it goes in the tank. And then this little guy right here is called a UAT, and it's a bubble trap. And basically, there's a gauze filter inside of there.
Right.
And what it does is it keeps any air from getting into the fuel system, because if you pump air back to your engine, that air bubble, just like with your brain, you